Well, this is technically show number 42. I've got some work to do. I've got to get some stuff over to YouTube. I've got to get our show 41 edited up and uploaded, which was actually us on the sidelines. You know, all things considered, we threw that together as a prototype on
Yeah.
Sunday. And I listened back to it on the 8-hour ride home, actually, on Monday. I was like, you know what? I know some things we can change to make it better next time. Some things I think we did really well, actually, to give sideline perspective. I mean, when we're going to talk about that fumble play early in the game by North Central, Josh Vega was on that sideline and told us how palpable the change was in terms of the feelings on that sideline, the emotions on that sideline, JB. And, you don't get that necessarily from just having a couple people in the booth telling you about the game. We had pretty much that all night long going on between the fans and the coaching staffs and the players and everything going on around that sideline area. It was great to be able to bring that to folks, the emotion that was going on in that game, because there was a lot of emotion throughout it. What was your take on just that atmosphere on Sunday night?
That was a great atmosphere, and although I think we spooked a few of the photographers because we have these earpieces in and we're like chatting away and in like regular speaking voices, and a lot of times I saw them like turn around going like, what's this guy talking? Who's he talking to? I don't think they quite figured it out. I may have accidentally blocked the replay camera at the end of the first half by accident. I need a little more field awareness. Kind of a bulky guy, I guess, so I take up a little more space than I should. But otherwise, I thought it was great. I mean, I glad I had 4 whatever layers on, plus the heat packets and all that kind of stuff to stay warm. It got chilly, and I did see a lot of people complain about the field conditions and the ice, and at the end of the day, guys, Canton was the only place that raised their hand to host this game. So if you wanted a Stagg Bowl, that was it. And there could be a lot worse places than the Hall of Fame Stadium, which I thought was a fantastic venue, and really give a lot of credit to the River Falls faithful, who really outnumbered the North Central fans, maybe 2-1. And they were really loud and really into the game. But yeah, being on the field, you did feel the momentum swings more because, when things went well for North Central, that side got more animated. When things went well for River Falls, that side got more animated. So you really felt the ebb and flow of the game all the way to the end.
Yeah, for sure. And we got a lot to talk about in this show with respect to, some stuff that happened that we couldn't really disclose to you. So you actually want to stay tuned for the entirety of this show. We'll get to that toward the end of it, some of that stuff. But, my one prideful moment is that even though I was sliding away around that sideline, especially in the wardrobe change that I did to the other shoes in the second half, at least I didn't wipe out like a certain friend of our show, actually, who was getting a little excited during the Blake Rohr touchdown and wiped out on the sideline or the end line. And, it happens. But that's the thing I always try to avoid. Not through the excitement factor. You and me, we've done this long enough. We keep it even keel. Regardless of what our
that was the
personal
most
emotions
exciting
may
play,
be.
I think, of the game
Yeah.
for me.
Oh, yeah.
That catch in the corner was just a fantastic display of athleticism. I was jumping up and down, kind of screaming too, but at least I had some heavier boots and whatever to keep me grounded.
Yeah, and it's just getting to know Blake Rohr through the last couple games of this season, because obviously, as I said to him in the interview that we had posted up, I've tripped over his name how many times in the season and never really got to know who he was, what he was about, and everything else. And to get to know him, that is the epitome of a D3 guy to me, and why we do this, because just respectful as hell to us, communicates with us very, very well, and just a team player through and through. The story speaks for itself. You saw the pregame interview we had done with him in Media Day. You saw the postgame interview. That's Blake Rohr, 24/7 pretty much from what we've seen of him. And, congratulations to him. Caleb Blaha and he have a special friendship, clearly, and it played out that way on Sunday night. Let's get to the show. Let's get to the game discussion and the replay of it all and whatnot here, because this is episode 42 of season 18 of In the Huddle. Well, there it is. We're going to take a closer look at what the road actually was for River Falls in a little bit after we talk about the game. But, to beat North Central in and of itself was an amazing thing. But you look back at that Johns Hopkins game, JB, and you say to yourself, how in the hell did they give up 41 points to Johns Hopkins, but only 14 points to North Central? That's an amazing change over 2 weeks. And Johns Hopkins, obviously no pushover, and they deserve a lot of merit for a number 3 spot. And I think that's where they'll end up in our top 40 poll when it's all said and done. And they'll come out probably on Friday morning along with this show. But JB, long story short here is that River Falls had a second to none schedule. So did Johns Hopkins this season. And, your question about how scheduling works and affects these teams that are on the, fringe of the upper echelon, let's call it, and it's sort of pushing them into the upper echelon as they learn and get better from the iron sharpening iron situation, I think. We'll look at the full schedule for River Falls and the road they took in the playoffs and everything else for folks to understand what we mean, but I'll give you a chance for a 30,000-foot view of the actual game itself, the Stagg Bowl. And, it isn't 30,000 feet. It's about 3 feet off the ground for us right on that sideline. But go ahead. Tell me what you would like to focus on.
Well, I think you kind of teed it up well in our pregame show, talking about like the 2 or 3 times out of 10 that River Falls, could have won. Maybe now that this has happened and with all the pomp and circumstance, everyone maybe thinks, oh, River Falls is going to win this thing for sure. There was no doubt, But there were definitely some plays in this game and some points that North Central left on the board that I'm sure, Coach Spencer and the Cardinals, when they watch the tape back, are going to be like, man, if we only made a play here, if we did this. Ultimately, it was the 3 turnovers that, and if you do kind of a rough math, you could say was like a 20-point swing in the game. Without those turnovers, North Central probably wins. To be on the doorstep, about to go up 14-0 early in the first quarter, that fumble really changed the whole momentum of the ball game. And luckily for River Falls, they came away with some points. So they didn't get a touchdown on that drive, but they did get a field goal, and that kind of got the ball rolling for them and gave them some confidence. But if it was 14-0 at that point, and then they had even if they made it 14-7, we saw what North Central's subsequent drive. There was like a 9-minute, long ball control. It could have been 21-7 at the half. Just a totally different ball game. So a lot of big plays impacted this in ways now with some retrospect. You're like, okay, yeah, it makes sense that this was one of those 2 or 3 times, because the 3 turnovers were just something, you just can't do that in a championship game and expect to win.
And, no is the answer to that. You're absolutely right. And also, I'll tell you, having talked with Coach Spencer after the fact, he was pretty much in the same mindset on that, the turnovers. Look.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to take anything away from River Falls. No. I mean, they're very deserving champions. Their defense played amazing. The
you have to
pick by
force
Sussner.
Turnovers. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you got to make the plays, right? And Jack Olson's tipped interception to himself was amazing. So there were reasons why those plays happened and that North Central lost the game, but or North I should say River Falls won. Same thing, whatever. It's been a long season, Frank. I think I'm running on fumes at this point.
Hey, listen, this was my 23rd game of the season, 47th in the last 2 seasons on the sideline. I'm with you. I'm still struggling to get myself up in the morning right now because your body sort of realizes when you're at the end of this thing, oh, it's time to actually take care of yourself and do the right things for yourself. Yeah, the people on Twitter that say, oh, you do this for yourself. It's like, you know what? Shut the bleep up, because you have no idea what we put ourselves through to cover this season, and we do it because we love it, and we love the players and the experiences of it all. So for those that want to keep, creating your burner accounts and everything else, you have a blast doing that, because it doesn't stop us from doing what we do, for sure. More on that later, like I said. Let's talk about the game. I've got over 3 pages of notes here to go through, so let's do this. Folks, yeah, you got your notes too, so we're all set here. It's time for our recap of the Stagg Bowl. We won't officially call it a crunch time start here, but we'll just jump into this game. Stagg Bowl 52, which was River Falls versus North Central. Early in the game, you'll see here on the 2nd and 10 play by North Central, you have a Jack Rummel catch from Garrett Wilson, 16 yards to 7 yards short of midfield. Later on, you'll see here, though, in that drive, Donovan McNeil, a 48-yard touchdown run. And boy, this was the start that River Falls kind of feared seeing, but here it is, 7-0, North Central leading the game 2 minutes, 3 seconds into it. River Falls couldn't get a first down in their first drive, and their punt was fielded just past midfield at the 44. Here's North Central on 2nd and 5. Garrett Wilson complete to Thomas Skokna for 14 yards to the River Falls 7-yard line. But as we said, on the 1st and goal play, Wilson, the exchange was just fumbled to McNeil, and it's recovered by Gage Tim. You'll hear a lot of that name tonight, or today, that is, coming up here. River Falls on the next play has a great catch by Jake Hilton for 36 yards. Unbelievable job by him, first down, past midfield, or right at midfield, I should say. Then later on, here is Jake Hilton again at the 9-yard line, a 15-yard catch, but they couldn't get it into the end zone, so it's a Justin Chevrolet 25-yard field goal to make it 7-3. Again, the importance, though, is the momentum that got sucked out of the game for North Central from that fumble. First play of the second quarter for North Central, a 3rd and 13 play at the River Falls 35, and they get 13 yards. Jack Rummel to the 22-yard line. And then you're going to see here, right in front of you, I believe it was, JB, a pass interference call as Grant McAtee was interfered with right near the goal line, and so brought the ball up to the 13-yard line. Second quarter, 11:07 left. Donovan McNeil, a 1-yard touchdown run, makes it 14-3, North Central leading. But again, because of that fumble, it just felt different, even though it was an 11-point lead at this point. We'll go to River Falls next possession. Caleb Blaha finds Austin Rush for a 24-yard gain to the North Central 47-yard line. But then River Falls couldn't get a first down, and they end up having to punt the ball to the 12-yard line. North Central went 3 and out, so they get a good, a reasonable field position at least. And then to get to the 20-yard line of North Central, here's a completion to Adam Johnstone, his second completion to the tight end from Blaha in this drive. So they were using the tight end well. And then Blake Rohrer, what a catch here. You can see he gets the toe and then the butt on the line, but the toe is what mattered there, and touchdown River Falls. They trailed 14-10 at that point. We go on in the second quarter. North Central, Donovan McNeil became a 3rd down back for sure in this drive as he converts his 3rd and 2 with a 4-yard gain for a first down. And then later on in the drive, he's at 3rd and 1 and gets a 9-yard gain to the 22-yard line of River Falls. But some interesting play calling here with North Central running against the clock a little bit. And you'll see Garrett Wilson complete for a short gain to McNeil, 1-yard gain. They had to take a timeout with 21 seconds left. Then 2nd and 9 from the River Falls 21-yard line, and Garrett Wilson is complete. But, to Shiru for 10 yards, it's great and all, out of bounds. Next play, he's sacked for a 2-yard loss. Now there's only 8 seconds left. Timeout, North Central. Again, Gage Tim with that sack. So here's a big play, and this is something that, again, lost points. Taylor Sussner gets the interception in the end zone, returns it, almost fumbled it himself, but that ended the half. So instead of getting a field goal or maybe a touchdown, it's an interception in favor of River Falls. We'll go to the third quarter, and River Falls tried to start out strong to get the lead. Caleb Blaha complete the Blake Rohrer for a 16-yard gain to the 22-yard line of North Central. But you'll see here a 3rd and 10, a gain of just 6 yards. It was 3rd and goal officially, I believe. And so to the North Central 4-yard line, they had 4th and goal from the 4. And Blaha is incomplete, looking for Jake Hilton, but it was broken up by Braden Garrigan. So an opportunity lost by River Falls. North Central, on the other hand, you'll see here on a 2nd and 7 play near midfield, holding was called against North Central. And then on 3rd and 15, you're going to see Garrett Wilson get sacked here by Gage Tim. He was spying on him all night long. North Central would punt on 4th and 28, and then it was time for Caleb Blaha's legs to come into effect. Here on a 2nd and 4 play from the North Central 29, he gets 14 yards to the 15-yard line and a first down. And then later on, he'll get a 7-yard touchdown run. River Falls, who trailed 14-3 in the second quarter, has taken the lead at this point, 17-14. The first play of the fourth quarter we'll go to now. North Central is facing a 3rd and 11 at the River Falls 44-yard line, but Garrett Wilson only rushes for 2 yards on the play to the 42. It led to a punt that went to the River Falls 11-yard line, and River Falls would drive into the red zone on this next drive here on a 2nd and 6 from the 27-yard line of North Central. Blaha finds Jalen Reed at the 18-yard line, a 9-yard gain for a first down. Then you'll see a 3rd and 10 play. Eventually, Blaha complete to Adam Johnstone again to the 16-yard line, but that was only a 4-yard gain. So on 4th and 6, they could have gone for a field goal. They go for everything, and Caleb Blaha is sacked on the play. No points there for River Falls. Another missed opportunity, turnover on downs. We'll go to North Central's next drive. 3rd and 3 they face. Donovan McNeil gets a 14-yard gain to the North Central 37-yard line. But then 2 plays later, oh my goodness, Jack Olson bats the ball, catches the ball, almost gets to the house. Garrett Wilson and Thomas Skokna have to just pull him down in every way they try. They finally got him down at the 12-yard line, but on the next play with 8:44 left in the fourth quarter, Caleb Blaha, a 12-yard touchdown run, makes it 24-14. River Falls leading by 10 points. That's 21 unanswered points by the Falcons. We'll go to the next drive for North Central as they try to scurry back in this game. And you'll see on a 1st and 10 play at midfield, Garrett Wilson incomplete to Skokna. It was broken up by who? Jack Olson. Once again, he's just everywhere in this fourth quarter. Then 3rd and 7 from the 47-yard line, and Wilson is sacked by Taylor Sussner for a 15-yard loss. North Central would take a timeout with 5:58 left to talk about it on 4th and 22, and they are incomplete on the next play, broken up by Trent Cherry, and that would do it for that drive. River Falls was unable to score with 3:11 left and turn the ball back over on downs. So with 2:16 left, another 4th down for North Central, this time 4th and 7, and Garrett Wilson is incomplete to Thomas Skokna. And that would do it for that drive and for the game, because the next thing we're going to show you is that River Falls kneels it out and wins Stagg Bowl 52 by the final score of 24-14. What a tremendous game for the Falcons in this situation. On North Central's side, Donovan McNeil had 23 carries, 133 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. Garrett Wilson, 18 for 28, 194 yards, but 2 interceptions and the 1 fumble we talked about earlier. For River Falls, Blake Rohrer, 4 catches, 50 yards, and that really pivotal early touchdown reception. Caleb Laha, 419 total yards, 1 passing, 2 rushing touchdowns. He was the most outstanding player of Stagg Bowl 52 and broke Joe Burrow's all-division single-season total offense record with 6,189 yards. Also, Gage Tim tied for the lead in tackles with 13 for his team, but had 2 sacks and a fumble recovery on the night. JB, it was clear. Gage Tim's job was to basically find Garrett Wilson at all times, to spy on him, as we've talked about, and he did it so well. He is just such a great player. He could have actually been most outstanding player, but defensive players often don't get, the same accolades. But we don't want to, miss the fact that Gage Tim's performance was incredible. Taylor Sussner's performance was incredible. That defense in general, to shut them out in the second half, unheard of, honestly.
Unbelievable. Yeah, no, it was a really amazing display and just a great show of coaching by the River Falls staff. To come up with those adjustments and to really shut down North Central's offense. During our broadcast in the fourth quarter, there was a point where I was kind of saying out loud or imploring, this is a time where North Central needs to change it up. They need to get away from the run. They need to start throwing the ball, and they didn't, or they did maybe a little too late. And the thing about this game now, looking back on it, and when you look back on the season, while Garrett Wilson definitely didn't have the speed of Luke Lennon, I don't think anyone in T3 really does, but he was a running quarterback at times, and he scored a lot of rushing touchdowns, but his legs were kind of negated in this game, and maybe that was by design from the NCC side. They wanted to do more of a ball control, and I thought that McNeil would have 3 rushing touchdowns, and he almost did, but I think what was really the story was that for the first time maybe this season, the NCC offensive line wasn't the biggest unit on the field. There were a couple, 2-3 guys from River Falls who were huge, 300-pound, 290-pound defensive tackles that really gave them a hard time and really set up this elite linebacking crew of Tim, and then the safety Suffner just made some huge plays. It's amazing that guy's only a freshman. I think we'll have some more superlatives for those guys. I don't know if we're doing that in this show or in a future show. I think we've got more to cover there.
Yeah, we'll be doing our Players of the Year coming up in a separate batch of things later on, and some short snips on Twitter. So stay tuned for that later on in this month. We'll get to that. It just takes more graphics, basically, for me on this end to get that all together. But we want to get this show out. Look, Garrett Wilson was clearly fazed by what was going on. Once that fumble occurred, I think it started creating, for a youthful player like him, a little self-doubt out there about things. And Gage Tim just jumped on that fact. Let's just face it, Gage Tim was all over the place when it came to Garrett Wilson. And if you're going to have a player that's going to knock out, a Garrett Wilson type out there who is an exceptional quarterback in and of himself, let's just be clear about that, then it's going to have to be a guy like Gage Tim. It really is. And, there's such a trust in that player from Coach Walker and all the coaching folks out there for River Falls in Tim that I think, we interviewed him on the show, and, we've talked to him, in the post-game press conference, stuff like that. Very unassuming guy in terms of, just the way he carries himself in those types of situations. He lets his play speak for itself, and it did, honestly. An incredible job by him. And again, Caleb Laha, to get the 400-plus yards in that game. I was correct. They didn't get 400 yards passing, as I said in the pregame show, but he did get 400 yards total. And those legs of his getting that touchdown eventually, that put them over the top to 17-14 in the game was, a very important part of this whole thing. So, I think everything kind of went right after everything seemed to go wrong in the first drive defensively for them. And
Yeah.
you know, game of momentum is football, and the momentum just seemed to swing to them, even in the moments where they didn't have perfect success, like on that drive to start the second half. They get to the 4 or 6 yard line, whatever it was, 4 yard line, I think it was, and they couldn't get in. And there's turnover and downs. They had a turnover and downs around that 18-yard line we showed there in the highlights. But they seemed to feel like their defense was just going to bail them out of those situations or make it right in the end. And that's what happened. It just happened over and over again. So congratulations to the Falcons. They were having fun all week. It was new to them. It was exciting to them and their fan base. And there it was, to say the least. Let's go to your MVPs for the Stagg Bowl. And you've got three guys that I think are a formidable group here for sure. I think we've mentioned their names multiple times, or at least two of them multiple, and one of them once because he did have points himself that we highlighted in that review. Go for it.
Yeah, and once again, for people who aren't familiar with our show, we do kind of spread the wealth here. I mean, Frank and I, along with the rest of the guys that were with us in Canton, did vote for Caleb Blaha to be the most outstanding player of the Stagg Bowl. And then when he was named basically the D3Football.com Offensive Player of the Year, it's like, guy's got plenty of trophies. He's got the Gallardi, he's got the Stagg Bowl ring now. He's good to go. So I want to preface this by saying that these are guys' names that may or may not have been called by other publications. So I wanted to shine the light on them. And then, as we mentioned his name earlier on, is having probably the most athletic play from the Stagg Bowl, that huge receiving touchdown. Blake Rohr, the junior wide receiver, became my offensive MVP. That was something that kind of just made the River Falls offense sideline. I think when they scored that TD, the belief of like, hey, we can win this game kind of really increased. Obviously it was aided by plays like the Sussner interception at the end of the first half, and then Olsen's play in the fourth quarter. But the offense was, we were talking early on, struggled a little bit without Rohr in the early stages of the game. And once he got involved and got his hand on the ball a few times, things started to pick up. Special teams, you mentioned him earlier. I hope I don't butcher his name. Justin Schriebel, is that close? I don't know. And the funny thing is, we saw him slip and fall on his ass during pregame warmups. He was practicing field goals in the same end zone where we were standing when we first got there. And, he just picked himself up, brushed himself off, went and the ball shanked off and went over the partition. He had to go track it down. But, he got those jitters out of the way, and he was perfect for the rest of the night. He kicked a rock of a football through the uprights for points that River Falls desperately needed after that turnover, and then he was perfect on the point afters. So, he was my special teams player of the game. And then last but certainly not least, Gage Tim, who was just outstanding, the leading tackler of the game. I know technically he was tied in total, but he had, I think, 8 unassisted, and he was just all over the field, was a big reason why that defense operated so well and was able to shut down the Cardinals in the second half.
Yep, good choices for sure there. Let's take a look at the road. Again, we'll do in reverse order here. We started the post intro with this a little bit, but again, you beat North Central, who was number 4. You beat Johns Hopkins, who was number 7 in the whole situation. Actually, were they number 7? I think they were. I want to say they were number 9 actually. But looking back,
yeah, the F&M loss, I think, dinged them enough.
No, actually, they may have been 7 in the end. Now I'm thinking about this. I think, let's see here. I think these numbers are actually accurate as I'm looking at them. Sometimes you got to question how the AI produces this stuff, but looks right. Wheaton at 29, but didn't play like a number 29 out of the 40. Now, when we do this, we compress it down to 40, but some of the numbers are actually higher than what we're showing for the entirety when it's teams on the lower end. Wheaton may have been 29th in reality too, but either way, St. John's at 16. You've got Chapman at 36. That was a team that actually was lower than actually number 36 nationally. And what I want to really do here, though, obviously they played 5 playoff teams in the games, but also when you go back to their overall schedule, Alma was a playoff team. Yeah. Co was a playoff team. Oshkosh was not. Platteville was. Stevens Point, Eau Claire, no, but Whitewater,
so
yes.
Whitewater and Lacrosse.
Lacrosse, yes. And so there's 5 playoff teams that they played in the regular season. They beat 10 playoff teams in 2025. That ends up being, I think, arguably the best schedule in the country when you look at that. And again, let's go back to a couple things that happened in the post-game press conference. First, Josh Vega asked the question of Matt Walker about the Isthmus Bowl, the importance of those wins that they had in the Isthmus Bowl and getting to this point ultimately as a result of that. And Matt Walker had a very interesting take on it. Great question by Josh, and here's that back and forth.
This is, I believe, the third time you've brought a trophy back to River Falls in the last 4 years. You've had the 2 Isthmus Bowls and now this national championship. And so I would like to ask, with that first Isthmus Bowl, do you believe that was any kind of catalyst? Did that act as a kind of catalyst in kind of propelling the program forward into national spotlight and helping to eventually shape the team that won the national championship?
It's a great question, and I think we probably don't talk about it enough. I think you're exactly right to bring that up. I think it for sure did. You'd have thought we won the Super Bowl in 21, we won the Isthmus Bowl, and then, we go and do it again, and there's some, for sure, confirmation that we're doing something right to put those trophies and have hardware. I think for sure it was some reiteration that we got this thing going in the right direction. Yeah, I would say you're exactly right, but I don't talk about it enough.
So, we talk about bowl games all the time, and I posted about this on Wednesday night. Bowl games matter. It's a postseason opportunity for more practice time, more team togetherness time, and everything else, and playing another good team, because obviously you're getting matched up with somebody better than 500 at the very least in those situations. Quite often somebody who's a 70+% winning percentage, depending on the year. I mean, for those people that think that bowls are meaningless, I honestly think you have to look right here at Exhibit A at this point. What's your thought?
No, I think, and as Coach Walker said, that first win and the trophy they brought home in 21 was sort of like a Super Bowl for them. And we've seen this, across the country. We saw it with the rise of Grove City. We've seen it with other teams that have taken advantage. I mean, I guarantee you that the ECAC Bowl win that Rowan had this year is going to help propel them to the next level. It's just that extra week of practice, the playing a playoff caliber type of opponent. It really does help build programs.
Absolutely does. Then, during halftime, you got a text message from an old friend of the show, and you asked about it in the post-game press conference, and here it goes.
I guess I'll just share a story. I got a text message from Kurt Fitzpatrick, who said at halftime, eerily similar first half, River Falls down 4, getting the ball back after the half, QB getting hot, watch out. What did you guys think about? Were there any kind of correlations with that Cortland game?
State?
Yeah, he was the former Cortland coach. What did you tell the guys at halftime?
I said we did our thing. I don't talk to him a ton of half, but I said I'm gonna bring the whole team up because halftime happens. I said I didn't know today. I wasn't sure how to handle it. That's a long time to wait, and I kicked back and I turned on the Cortland State North Central game, and I watched it. And at halftime, I told these guys, I said, I watched that game at halftime, and I said, this was the score, and this is what happened in the second half. And I said, it feels like that ball game. It's exactly what I told these guys, right? It's exactly what I said. So let's go do it ourselves.
Wow.
Unbelievable. Did you have a microphone in the halftime? You sneaking up on us?
No, I got the text right here. Real deal. You sent it.
Okay, so on this show, I think before we left for Ohio, you were quizzing me on comparisons to 21 Stagg Bowl matchup for North Central and everything else, and I said to you here, I honestly think this better is a 23 comparison, Cortland, because especially with the quarterback having that dual threat scenario, the way that Zach Boyce had it. Caleb Blaha had it. And, then we end up with basically the same distance and score at halftime and just a team that seemed motivated beyond belief. And, as Coach Fitzpatrick said in that whole text to you, JB, that was a team that was on momentum heading into the second half, even down 4. And sure enough, there it was. And if anybody knew about what that momentum means and everything else in a 4-point game at halftime in the Stagg Bowl, he was the guy. But what are your thoughts on how that whole thing played out?
Well, I just think it's ironic because I did the same exact thing before Stagg Bowl 52 as I did at Stagg Bowl 50. I went up to Coach Kurt. He was, starting to get ready to kick things off, and I just looked at him and I shook his hand and I said, give us something good to talk about, good luck. And I said the same thing to Coach Walker as he was finishing up his interviews with the Kobe and the D1 Rejects crew. And I shook his hand and I said, I told Coach Fitzpatrick this 2 years ago. What us talking heads want is something good to talk about here. So show us something. And he certainly did. So it's ironic that things kind of worked out in the similar way, and that he had also kind of watched that game and he referenced it at halftime in the same way, and that Coach Kurt just reached out to me randomly. It was sort of felt surreal. It was like, and I said this to a couple of people along the sidelines, like this has Salem vibes, and it ultimately did.
It's always good to know that coaches that aren't in D3 anymore are still watching D3 for sure. Coach Fitz was obviously watching that game. Yeah. And,
Coach Caruso was there to cheer on his buddy. Absolutely. And we had a nice time hanging out with him.
Yep, we were at Buffalo Wild Wings having our lunch and watch a little NFL action, and we end up getting a special guest in him and getting to talk with him. And he's just such a fountain of football knowledge. He was enjoying talking to you about this game and everything else. So, but just to have that trust factor from coaches like that too, that they're willing to reach out to us, we do appreciate that truly. We usually wouldn't reach to tell you about that text, but it was so appropriate and fitting. And little did we know that in that locker room, they were having the same discussion. That's the amazing thing about it, that everybody kind of all agreed. Cortland was kind of the case of the scenario. And, we started saying a couple weeks ago, and there it just kept going. Just like, a couple weeks ago, earlier, they, told us about the Tarnation Tavern, Tarnation Tandem thing, and that becoming a big deal and everything around the country as a result of it. So it just was a lot of fun to have these storylines play out throughout, toward the end of this whole thing this season, because we didn't have that level of connection with River Falls. We engaged Tim on the show, and obviously we kind of let Kobe and his group do their thing with River Falls because they had such that connection with them, and we got it. But Coach Walker couldn't have been nicer to us. We appreciated that. Trent Jackson, always accommodating to us and did a great job in the semifinals as SID to, get things lined up and help us out even at Stagg itself. We appreciated that. And so thank you to all of them for, putting up with us and being, outstanding toward us throughout Stagg Bowl weekend and even before that. So, it's been a great ride in that respect. I do want to give some thanks and sort of share something with folks at this point. And it's one of those things where I'd rather focus on the plus of this, even though there's not much plus to it, but we made a good relationship out there in this respect too. Before the travel occurred over the last couple of weeks leading up to Stagg Bowl, We had some what we would call odd threats, veiled threats at the very least, that you could easily read through, to a point that, I asked my friends in law enforcement on this end to take a look at this, because we had 5 people in our party that were basically covering this game. You, me, Zach, Josh, and Alex DeVito. And by the way, Zach's and Alex's photos, tremendous job by them. We posted those links on our Twitter and Instagrams, I believe. So go out there and look at those photos, and if you want some, reach out to them. That's for sure. They did a great job. But it's on us to make sure that everybody's protected. And so our law enforcement friends here actually shared our concerns, did a little research into it, and reached out to the Canton Police Department. And Canton Police Department agreed that there was a concern on their end. And so they actually set up for us more or less an escort to the field and on the field all night. We actually, you don't realize this until I say it now probably, but we had a police officer from Canton on the sideline with us the entire game, not directly behind us or anything like that, but always watching out for us throughout the game because of that threat. Luckily nothing came of it. And we did tell our friends at North Central, the folks that we do trust over there, and there are many of those friends that we absolutely love and adore at North Central. Those are the 95% of the people that cause only 5% of the problems, and then there's the 5% of the people that cause 95% of the problems for any team out there. So the 95% of the people we truly appreciate. And we told them what was going on, and they said, you know what, you're doing the right thing by having that, even though we don't think it's going to lead to anything. They thought it was better to be safe than sorry. So we appreciated that. We also appreciated JJ Nekoloff, who kind of is the head of the media stuff out in the Stagg Bowl the last few years. He made sure that the committee knew about this as well, and the committee was great about that as well. So we want to thank everybody, including the Canton Police Department, and they were just phenomenal to get to know and talk with, and they had us, in their sights the entire night to protect us. And we sit here thinking it's a waste of resources. It is, because nobody should have to go through that. Nobody should have to, when they're doing their job, to basically go promote a Division III football game, to feel like, I don't know if I'm going to get confronted physically or otherwise on a sideline or elsewhere in the venue because of some crazy person that just doesn't know how to stop with rhetoric and leave it at rhetoric at the end of the day. And that's kind of where we're at. Anything you want to share on that?
Well, I would have welcomed that. I think the protection was more for them than for me. But there were children involved. Let's face it. I mean, and with all due respect to the 3 guys, like, they're the same age as my kids. And as a father and as a parent, you have to take extra steps to make sure that the kids are going to be all right. And the fact that this guy was even threatening children and exposing himself to children just tells you all you need to know about this kind of person. And anyone who associates with that, please just stop following our program, our coverage. We have no use for you at all. And I know that there's this whole you can't stop what a certain person's saying, or everyone's their own man. Yeah, but silence is complicity, or whatever the term is, and that's not okay. So I'm not going to address this anymore, other than the fact that it does seem like this guy really is a coward because he didn't show up. And although there were a couple times when I walked past the North Central sideline and I saw his daughter cheering with the dance team, and was there a little part of me that wanted to pull her aside and say, do you realize that this is the kind of man that your father is? I'm a grown up. I'm not going to do that kind of shit. All right. And she's doing her job. She's having fun with her girlfriends and seemed happy. Seems like a nice kid. I don't need to throw that out there. But one of the VPs at North Central was like, hey, when are you going to come up to Naperville? And I was like, I'd love to go, but I'm not going to show up if that guy's in the stadium. No way, because it's not going to end well for anybody. And so, whatever, keyboard warriors, act tough on one hand, but push comes to shove, no show. It tells me all I need to know about that guy. Yeah, Jack Ryan. Okay.
Well, the interesting thing was as I'm walking out the field at halftime, the head of the dance team out there pulls me aside and says, "We absolutely love your outfit, the first half outfit that I had." That's the whole thing. This is a fun time for everybody.
It's supposed to be fun.
We're trying to bring out the best of it. We've got a football game we got to talk about, but we also want to tell you about all the excitement around it. And, to have that shadow over it the whole time isn't fair to anybody, not just us, but even the players, because if it affects the way we cover a game, then we're not doing the job that we want to do out there. And that's a negative scenario for those players because, Kobe and folks did their pregame show, sure, but, they weren't covering the game afterward. Pat and Keith and Greg, I didn't listen to their broadcast fully yet, but, they did their normal thing up in the press box, and that's great and whatnot. But, we had a different style of coverage.
They always do a great job calling the game.
Yeah. Absolutely. And we had a different style of coverage and, to give alternatives out there. That's what we do. And then to be able to bring the couple of interviews we did in the post game, and thanks to the folks that worked with us to make sure that could end up happening from the committee in the end. And apologies if I got a little aggressive about it, but, we're there for a reason.
But a little aggressive? No, that doesn't sound right.
I apologized, and
I think you were a little too frozen to think rationally.
Yes.
And it was frustrating because we had multiple conversations of like, look, this is what we did last year. We did it, and this is the thing. And as long as we understand what the NCAA's rules are, and we're not going to step in front of that. But once you guys have the 4 people identified that are going to be in the press conference, we were told that anybody else was free game, and it's an opportunity to have them, have a national audience, to be able to speak on behalf of their team. And I think Jack and Blake did an awesome job in their interviews. Obviously, we kind of went on a little longer with Blake because he had kind of developed some camaraderie with you and Zach and all that kind of thing. And so, I think that added to the whole experience. But it was frustrating at first when they're like, absolutely not. I'm like, wait a minute, come on, we checked with JJ. So thank you, JP, for making the save, and thank you, Frank, for being persistent because, whatever it's 20,000 something views later, that's what was there for those kids to have their moment, and I think that was great.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. Press rooms are nice and all, but it's not the moment. It's not the excitement level of, hey, you just won a national championship. We're out here on the field and your fans are behind you. How does it feel? That's the moment, okay? That's what they want to be able to relish and remember and go back and look at later on. And that's what we try to do, okay? ESPN's there for a couple minutes after a game. We try to be there for a little bit longer to give them that. So, again, River Falls, it was a lot of fun. Thank you and congratulations. North Central, we had a lot of fun with you guys, with your team, because we accidentally ended up staying at the same hotel. I booked it months ago, not knowing who was what and everything else, and lo and behold, we ended up at their hotel.
I didn't get a chance. We haven't spoken to you since we left. I actually ran into some of the players at 5 a.m. when I was leaving to go to the airport.
Same here.
I don't even know if they went to bed. They were probably up all night, but yeah.
One of my best memories in the post-game, honestly, was watching Thomas Skokna, who I think is just an absolutely awesome guy from North Central, consoling Garrett Wilson on the field, because Wilson was obviously not having a good, post-game for various reasons. And you know what, Garrett, take that and put it into next year and the memories of it all. That's what Jeff Thorne basically did in 21 with his team, to sort of tell them, watch them out here celebrating, and know how it feels right now to have to watch that, so that next year when you come back, this doesn't happen again, that we're them, basically. And so I saw a lot of North Central players stay out there longer than you would normally think the losing team would stay out there to watch it. So they didn't forget what Thorne sort of approached it with in 21. God rest his soul. But watching Skokna do that, and I saw him actually in the hotel afterward, and I said, that was just class by you, and that's the thing. guys like Thomas Skokna are absolute classy when it comes to North Central. They're the guys. Brad Spencer, he exudes that from the top. That's who he is. I love talking with him every time we get the chance. I say it all the time, and it just pours on down from him to his players. And so the culture they have on that team, honestly, yes, there are exceptions to every rule, but the culture is excellent. And as I said to somebody the other day, don't let that culture change at North Central, because it's not just about winning, it's about winning with class. And that is missing from a lot of stuff out there.
At the end of the day, there are 240 other teams that would love to be 58-2 over the last couple of seasons, right? I mean, what an incredible run of dominance. And probably my favorite interaction this weekend with the North Central crowd, other than those pretty friendly and funny guys from the 80s that we ran into at George's on Saturday night, was Mr. Spencer himself, Brad's father. And, I ran into him a couple times that weekend, and what a nice guy. And when I got back to the hotel at whatever it was, 12:30 in the morning, he was standing there with a bunch of other North Central families and friends. We chatted for a moment, and he was kind of like, sometimes things don't go your way, and this is just another opportunity to show how you pick yourself up. And so, I mean, perfectly said. It's clear, why he's, why this program's in such good hands. His son is such a great guy. And they'll learn from the challenges and the mistakes, and they're probably going to be back there again next year. We'll see.
And maybe so will River Falls. I mean, Matt Walker's got something going on there as a coaching staff for sure. Blake Rohrer says he's coming back. We asked him point blank in the post-game interview. He says he's coming back. Sure, you graduate off a lot of talent there. Gage Tim, I believe, has got no years left there, I would assume. And others, but you got the Taylor Sussners of the world that are absolutely phenomenal as a freshman. Okay, so they've got something going on there, and maybe they continue that run, but it's going to be tough. The WIAC is still a tough place to play in the season, but they also might merit 3 or 4 playoff slots again. Who knows next season? We'll talk a lot more about that on our show coming up next month when I come down to Florida, and we do it from your kitchen again mid-month next month. So we'll look ahead a little bit more at that point. We'll, in the meantime, have our players of the year coming up and coach of the year as well. But what are your last thoughts here as we close out a little bit of this whole 2025 season, and just, we are not ending season 18 yet, but it's kind of coming to that point. What's your final thoughts?
Yeah, in many ways, it's kind of the best of times, worst of times season, I think, for us. I was looking down at my chicken scratch here, and I think on formal shows, we interviewed close to 30 players and coaches. I know with the 20-something games that you went to, Frank, that's probably another, 2 to 3 players plus a coach thrown in there. So, I mean, you do the math and it adds up. We had the opportunity to really highlight a lot of different people and programs all across the country, and that's why we keep doing this. Some of the stories that we have come across, like Jack Curtis of Carleton, for instance, what an inspiration. So happy that we had a chance to meet and get to know him and hear his story. I mean, obviously the jacket that you wear on the sidelines is a cancer research related fundraiser. We'll have more on that at a separate time. But my family was affected by cancer in 2025, so it's that subject hits very close to home, and so I'm trying to focus on the good. But there was a lot of bad this year, and there was a lot of unnecessary bad things where they really went over a line that really shouldn't have. And as much as I think we have done our best to reach out, and we've smoothed over some things. Like I remember we had that conversation with Carlo from Voices and Dingo Talk, and he was a little upset about some things, and I said, let's just have a conversation about it. We did, and I think we're all on much better ground now. It was a pleasure to see him and his fiance at the game, and to meet in person finally after all these years. And I'm excited to see how his platform continues to grow. But I will say that there are some people that involved that his one fault might be that he's just a little too inclusive. But yeah, I know he's doing things for the right reasons, and he's going to have to figure things out along the way, like you and I have. We've tripped up and stumbled and made mistakes in the last 18 years or whatever it's been. So that's all you can do. I know we've tried to extend olive branches. Sometimes those have been accepted. Sometimes those have been rejected. I've never, had a postseason where we were kind of just shunned in certain ways. So it was nice to be in Canton to actually like shake hands and look people eye to eye and oh yeah, they do seem like they like us and they're good people and vice versa. It's like nothing here is really, personal, but I don't know. Yeah, I hope that season 19 isn't like this. I'll just put it that way.
On the other hand, a lot of people asked and didn't really understand the story, and they were asking other people too, why are Frank and Pat Coleman not working together? And we had our reasons and everything else, but let me tell you what it did enable us to do this season. All that MPI stuff that you all enjoyed, I got the time finally, because we were focused on in the huddle this season, to get you guys that stuff out there. We've improved our graphics. We've improved and polished up our approach with even just scoreboard slides and whatnot. I bailed him out a little bit to, get him a little bit more of an automated process in that
was
each
the
week.
best. That might have been the best thing about season 18, the automated scoreboard slides. Oh my God, the greatest thing ever. I used to spend hours and hours on weekends filling those out. Oh my God.
But even the NPI stream that we did on week 11, where literally in real time you're watching what was happening with it and us being able to deduce what the final change was and everything. I mean, that is stuff that, again, we would not have been able to do. We're going to do some alternative calculator approaches coming up soon too, once we get a little bit more time after the season's now done. But that's the stuff. Even just our theme song and playing around with that with AI and getting a little bit more catchy and whatnot, and people are like, "I just show up for this." Yeah, I just show up for the theme song now. Hey, we're glad to have you either way. But that's what we've been able to do. Focus on making it better here. One thing that I should say, and we didn't show earlier. JB, you got 72.5% of your games correct this season. I was 70.6%.
Yes.
And for those that want to,
last year, I think, yeah.
Yeah, for those that want to say, this model over here is so good that I can't even find what their stats are for the season or whatnot. You know what? And I brought up the other day about, the coach that brought up NPI is not doing a great job on the top level teams and how to order them and everything, and the humans should get involved. You're a pretty good indicator here, I think, of, hey, the humans do know what they're talking about. The polls and folks like you who are prognosticating on the games do know what they're talking about a little bit. And maybe the NCAA needs to balance that again and figure out a way to get the involvement of humans into a little bit of this where it's failing on the computer end of it.
Yeah, and it also goes back. One of my favorite sayings now that Brad Spencer said in some of the pregame pressers is the old liars figure and figures lie. I mean,
yeah.
You see that all the times with like these, this whole analytics side of things. And I get there's an audience for it and, more power to them. But, at the end of the day, I don't really care if I'm right or wrong, to be honest. I mean, it's fun to be right, but, that's what I told John Snell that, when I think right after the game or during halftime or something, I was basically like, you know what, you guys put together a great tournament, and the fact that I got, 10 or whatever games wrong is the main reason for it. It's like it was unpredictable. We saw upsets of teams that we didn't think were going to win or lose, and that's good. That's good for the game. It's good for the entertainment value. So it's not about being right and having whatever. That's not important. It should be fun, should be entertaining, and yeah, let's leave it at that.
One result does not necessarily validate an entire model. Okay, and when you have
Absolutely
273 results that you picked at 72.5% clip, it's a good reminder that we as humans, the eye test matters a little bit too on this stuff. Computers alone aren't going to be able to do this stuff with the number of results we have. That's a discussion for another day. But folks, we really do want to thank you for watching all season long. We do have more coming up in season 18 before we switch over to season 19 in the summer. So make sure you come back to our Twitters at Frank Rossi, at D3FB Huddle, and see our remaining content that we have a little slower now that the season's over. Again, JB, thanks for everything. Thank you folks for everything. Thanks to everybody that came out to Stagg Bowl. We'll see you soon.